Yes, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, like I said, I put us on record here because I wanted to catch any ideas or words that, might be useful to anybody who listens to this. And I really appreciate you calling me today. And, whatever's on your mind, I'm definitely willing to listen.
Well, it's your interview, so I'll let you handle the interview how you see fit, sir.
Oh, well, the feeling's mutual. We'll interview each other because I'd love to interview you, and I guess you want to interview me. So we'll just interview each other.
Okay, this will be a first, so it'll be a learning experience.
Right. And I'm sorry, how do I pronounce your last name? I know you're a former law enforcement chief from the Texas law enforcement community, but how do I pronounce your last name?
It's Jones.
Jones? Okay, cool.
Okay. Yes.
You're definitely famous to me from the whole Leon Valley story. We don't need to go into all the details, but everybody knows that last year there was that craziness in Leon Valley. So that's how I found out about it.
Right. Well, I can tell you that I would say about 15 to 18 months ago is when I come to YouTube. You have to excuse me, I got some sinus issues.
I understand. I have that too, yeah.
Excuse me again. I actually run into a bad guy that, I've been dealing with people out on the streets and in prisons for 40 years. So I have been, on the internet actually since about 92 or 93 when it was starting to blossom out a little bit, but I didn't start with it. Sir?
Back when there was dial-up.
Yes, sir. So I was in the brave new frontier and spent a few $1,000s to get a Radio Shack Tandy computer, and if somebody, for example, wanted to send a picture of them or their family or whatever for Christmas or what have you, it could take 2 hours to 2 days to download a picture. Anyway, I'm just saying that I got on the bandwagon. Again, I'm sorry there.
No, you're fine.
And I'd kind of get in and out, and they was trying to advance things so fast, and they was trying to actually get some updated, more high-end computer gear in my department. My Lord. Anyway, I was not computer savvy, and it was really kind of overwhelming. But as time went on, somewhere between 92, 93, and 2000, I eventually caught on a little bit more.
Right.
Then when I was at Alpha, they required me. That was my full-time appointed chief of police job. They required me to start using email, which I'd been using email since 2000.
Sure.
It was 2005.
Right.
So I understand the basics, but at that time, Florida was catching up at that particular time because I worked in Texas in the late 70s and through the 80s. But the 90s until just a few years back, I was in Florida.
Okay.
So they made me start using the internet technology, and actually the mayor, he built computers, and he was explaining to me all the RAM and what this means and what that means and how to do this and that. So he really wanted me to be up to speed on this cutting-edge technology for law enforcement. In fact, he wanted me to get some of these courses and learn them, and there was an actual police consulting firm in Idaho.
Okay.
And in Idaho, these police videos and training videos that they had were, I guess, what you call Idaho Post approved. So if you got these courses in Idaho, you get credit towards your mandatory retraining. But of course, that's Idaho, so Florida would allow me to use some of that, so long as the mayor signed off of it in some discretionary time. But I had to start learning how to do tests on a computer, and the computer was the proctor, so to speak. The mayor or an elected official, according to them, had to be present and could look in on me and, quote, make sure I wasn't doing nothing wrong, and I was actually stopping and answering the questions. So as time went on and I went to Leon County Sheriff's Office, then they're real hardcore into computers. So I had to start learning more and more. And actually in 2009, I let's see, what was I at? I was going to tell you something about I got a YouTube account in 2009.
Okay.
I don't know what happened, but somehow there was a glitch on my end or their end, and I'd had it for like 4 years.
Right.
And I think in 2013, I was trying to upload another video. Okay. And it was me talking about the common law versus statutory law.
Right.
And talking about things called Lex Populi and Lex Radius. Those are Latin words for meaning, basically law of the people versus law of the ruler.
Right.
And so I'm taking all these courses that I had been taking, over the years on my own dime, on my own time. So I began to learn more and more and more. Well, I run into a bad guy on the internet, which is very easy to do. But like I'm saying, my experience on the computers, 90% was criminal justice, things dealing with colleges, other police departments, supervisors, or subordinates. So I wasn't using it a lot for private use.
Right.
It was basically business use.
It was, cool.
So here it is, I'm out there occasionally getting called to a meeting for the Elks Lodge or the Kiwanis Club or the Garden Club about talking to people about safety in the home, safety at school, safety in the workplace. And, I knew that computers could be very dangerous, and they could be very helpful.
Right.
And so the state actually gave us software that we could give away to people that could help parents monitor where their children that were 10 to 16 years old was going on the internet. And it could block a lot of things for kids who getting smart and going around. So I knew what I was teaching in general, but I didn't know the specifics.
Right.
Just like if you got a remote control, you can turn on the TV and you know where the volume and channel selector are. But if something in the TV needed fixing, you're out of gas unless you know a TV repairman. So that's how I was. Yeah. So I was doing that. Well, anyway, this bad guy, he conned me. So I'll just be honest about it. He conned me because he was actually doing some police accountability videos.
Okay.
And I thought he was pretty good at it, but not great at it.
Okay.
And, I was rethinking several things, which I had already changed my opinion of the criminal justice system back in the early 90s.
Right.
Okay? Because I was seeing the police under the Bill Clinton administration, Slick Willie, I seen that police departments were being militarized.
Right.
But they were making them like a local government militia under civilian guys. Yeah, right. So the militia is supposed to be the people. You and your next door neighbor, y'all are the Minutemen, you know. You got 5 or 10 people, guys and gals in your area, and y'all learn about first aid. You learn about dealing with weapons, food storage, how to protect your area. You know, those are the militias that they had in 1775, and then eventually become the Continental Army.
Right.
Well, anyway, the state has their own state guard. Okay, that is under government control. That is a military unit. That's not a militia. That's a military unit.
Right.
The militia is the 4th or 5th branch of government. Depends on how you look at things.
Sure.
But anyway, I begin to say, hey, look here. I had been offered by DEA and the United States Army through the Department of Military Affairs to be given surplus bulletproof vest to put some kind of steel or metal. They called it something, I can't remember, but anyway, it was like a 1/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch thick. It was a big plate, and you could do 4 of them, and you could go down to the paint and body shop, and they even had a grant that would pay them people to install them in your doors. So your door would become basically a bulletproof shield. So if you're standing behind your door, you'd have it.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, we got people that's over in freaking Iraq that don't have this for their Humvees and don't have it for their Jeeps. They're writing letters to their people asking their parents, grandparents, family, and friends to have a drive for them to get bulletproof vests and to get armament to put in their doors.
Wow.
In fact, I knew a man in Marianna, Florida, that went around collecting phone books throughout the entire city. And the National Guard down there, I don't know if it was the Marianna or the Quincy unit, but one of them, from my understanding, at least it was a local one, then they got, an authorization for shipment to their guards unit. And I believe it was the Marianna unit, but they got it. They got this books, and I said, what in the world are y'all doing with those telephone books? We're putting them in the doors of the Jeeps and the Humvees because it won't stop every bullet, but it'll stop a lot of bullets, and depending on what we do, 50 cal, we're in crap. But less than 50 cal, we can probably do some things to shore it up.
Right.
I said, my God. I said, we got a multi-billion-dollar military, and these guys can't get a bulletproof vest or whatever, but then we got the DEA, and we got other people, and they guessed, I was told at that particular time we had 750,000 sworn law enforcement in the United States.
Right.
Okay, the entire military, I think, was hovering around 825 to 925,000. So all these vests and all these things are given to police could have went to the military. But they're armoring up local police departments. A department I was at, they brought over a freaking tank, like a Sherman tank. I don't know what you call it. Sherman tanks all the sticks in my mind. It wasn't, but it was something like that. That probably come out of Vietnam or something like that in the 70s.
Sherman tanks in World War II.
Yeah. So, But some people in the military told me that after all that stuff was supposed to be discarded and they were on to the next level of tanks, that they were still around for years and years and years and years. But I digress. Back to the point, they were militarizing the police.
Right.
And I didn't think of it like that right at the moment, but I thought, we're in a small community here. And the biggest city around here is Tallahassee. And it's up the road a good piece. And, you know, we're not a sleepy little town, but we have a little bit of crime, but not a lot at this particular department. And I said, they're wanting to give us brand new vests over here. Give us a tank. Give us fully automatic weapons. Give us some grenades. I said, do they think we're freaking in Iraq? Where in the hell do they think we are? We're in small town America, where the super majority of everybody knows everybody.
Well, the scary part is that town was just one of many that did that.
Oh, yeah. But here was the kicker. You always got big boys that want big boy toys.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so you had several sheriffs and chiefs of police and directors of the Department of Public Safety that said, yeah, give me. We'll take anything.
Right.
So there was something like 3 years or 5 years you had to actually keep it. Whether you use it or not, you had to keep it, and it had to be available. Now, there was 2 clauses to this thing. During the time you had it, if the military or FEMA, and that's where I call them FEMA, or FEMA requires it to be used locally or nationally, you will make it available. Number 2, since you have this equipment, should the President of the United States call for a national emergency, then you'll be ready to take this gear out onto the roads and close the roads, to use it in weapons confiscations or do anything else. I said, hell no, I won't go. No. We don't need nothing like that.
Right.
But you actually, I knew other chiefs of police and sheriffs around the area. It's like, well, you by chance got 2 or 3 tanks instead of 1? What the hell are you going to do with them? Do you know what the maintenance cost is? The military was giving away some free helicopters. I said, do you know what the maintenance cost is for a helicopter or for a Humvee? Because some of these cops will look, well, we're going to get a Humvee and we're going to be big boys and, you know, we're going to roll out hard and all that. I said, you know, look, y'all got a military mindset. Y'all are like this as a foreign country in the United States. These are our friends and neighbors, okay?
Right.
You know, this ain't exactly Mayberry, Andy Griffith show, not exactly, but it's not Beretta neither, or Starsky and Hutch, okay? We're closer to Mayberry than Starsky and Hutch. But, you know, 9 out of 10, we can talk things out, work things out. There's no arrests, no tickets, no notice to appear. We can work everything out. We can talk it out like grown-ups.
Right.
Now, 10% of the time, you got some bad men and women that, you know, are pushing dope to children. They kidnapped or raped somebody, and we don't play the radio. Okay, you go directly to jail. You don't pass go, no $200, and, you know, you're going to be there a while. So we were very hard on the hard, but everything we could work out, we worked out. But I started talking to these other chiefs of police, and I said, don't you see that they're trying to militarize us? And I said, look, I'm a Christian, and I said, most of y'all are a profession Christian, and at least half or more go to church probably 2 or 3 Sundays out of the month. I said, you know, I don't want to get all into prophecy with you, but I said, can't you look at the signs and see things are going on? can't you read the signs in the sky? Can't you read the signs in the people and the land and see what's going on?
Right.
And that people are moving the landmarks and people are getting lost in their way and double-minded people. I said, look, I said, without getting real religious with you, I said, it says that only a remnant of the people will be left. Okay? And God's going to come back and stop everything, because elsewise all human life and all human flesh will be destroyed. And I said, only the remnant is going to make it. I said, that tells you something right there. And I said, I prayed very hard for a very long time for God to give me wisdom. Okay? I said, Solomon asked for wisdom. God said that was good. So I figured if it's good then, it's good now. I ain't going to ask for a new car or a new home or a bunch of money. I'm going to ask for wisdom. And my fifth great-grandfather, we got some of his old papers, and he wrote words to the effect of, knowledge and wisdom are far better than home, land, and money, or a script.
Okay.
He says, for when home, money, and land has passed away, if one has knowledge and wisdom, they can restore home, land, and script repeatedly throughout their life.
Right.
So wisdom comes first.
Sure.
So I said, can't y'all see? I said, are y'all bewitched? Are you under a spell? What is going on? And it was like one department was competing with another one to start to get vests. Now, we always, now I believe in vests. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't get my very first vest in my life until 1996. Okay? So I've been in it like 18 years before I got my first vest. And it took me forever to get used to that sucker.
Right.
Because I've never worn one. I just, people could call me stupid or naive if they want to, but I thought God had my back, and I was going to do that which was right and just, and I wasn't going to make enemies in the street. As a good cop, as a peace officer, my job was to bring about the peace and tranquility of the community. Thus, peace officer.
I like the way
and when they started, and when they started calling people law enforcement, it's a catch-all phrase for anybody that has the power to make an arrest and carry a gun comes under the auspices of law enforcement, okay?
Right.
But people don't know what all that entails, and they don't understand the difference in a department and an office. A department means that a government entity appoints you.
Right.
So you're responsible to the government, not to the people, the government.
Right.
If you are holding office, like office of sheriff, office of constable, office of marshal, okay, then the people elect you and you're accountable to the people.
Right.
Okay, so that's why a lot of times, and I found this throughout my career, of course it's a lot less these days, but you still find that a lot of constables and sheriffs still to this day listen to the people that elect them.
It sounds lovely.
Because they're depending on them to vote for them next go around.
Right.
And the last year before election, which they serve 4-year terms, the last year before election, they start listening a whole lot more, and they start making a whole lot less arrests. Okay, after the election is over, the arrests and citations and stuff go back up to whatever level it goes to. But as a rule, it is far, far less than area police departments.
Right.
Because nobody votes for you.
Right.
Okay? So all it takes to get hired as a police officer, or if you're the chief or assistant chief or something, then, most people have 5 people on the city council. Some's got 7 or 9 or more, but most have 5. If you got 3 of them that agree on what time of day it is, then you get to be the chief of police. Now, there's usually anywhere from half a dozen to 50 applicants for every job, because every cop, even in small towns, they're like, well, I want to be a chief somewhere. I just want to be the chief. I want to be the top guy. Okay, good. I understand. Been there, done that. But you're normally accountable to the mayor or to the city manager.
Right.
Or both. It depends on the city's charter. And depends on the state. And it depends if they have what they call a strong mayor council or a weak mayor council. Or they got a manager council form of government. And if they're a city or a town or a village, a borough, there's different things in the law, different places in the country that call for different things. So my point is, you're beholden to 3 to 5 people.
Sure.
That's it. So long as they're happy, guess who gets to keep being the chief of police?
Well, we know that's what happens in reality, but they should be beholden to the people, but that's not what happens.
I understand.
Yeah.
So here's what a man in Dallas used to say on the radio all the time. I forgot his name. I think he's still up there. It's on KLIF radio. I think they're 1290 AM, or used to be. He always used to say this, and I picked up his saying about people keep getting all the bills, and they keep getting cut out of all of the conversation. So it's shut up and pay your bill.
And
shut up and
bills,
pay your bill.
Assuming you mean citations.
No, your taxes.
Okay, well that's the first is taxes, but then there's other, there's obviously revenue creating schemes like speed traps and stuff. Yes.
Now, I try and be as honest and as straightforward as I can, and I'm long-winded. I've always been that way. The super majority of the people tell me I like it because you go into great depth, and when I'm through, I don't have to ask 50 questions. I got it. A lot of people talk so fast, or they dabble, but they don't really explain, So this is me. But
right.
I say this. A speed trap ain't what a lot of people think it is.
Okay.
Now a speed trap, by definition, is a people mousetrap, basically. You get snatched, okay?
Right.
So, mousetrap, speed trap, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. If the speed limit drops from 55 to 35, all of a sudden, there's no signs to tell you reduce speed ahead.
Right.
And then it goes from 55 to 50, and then 50 to 45, down to 40, and then to 35. It's a gradual dropping. And these signs should be, depending on the state, there's actually some requirements in certain states to where they either have to be 200 or 500 foot apart.
Right.
And numerous people have got traffic tickets thrown out across the country because they'd go back and they'd find out that the reduced speed ahead sign was not posted, or was not posted the correct number of feet. It can be more feet out, but it can't be less feet out.
Okay.
So if the policeman is sitting there on the line and clocking you on a radar, and it went to 55 to 35, and he gets you at 55 the first 100 foot and hits you, then you're 20 over. In some states, 20 over the limit. Some people 25 or 30 says reckless driving. Reckless driving, you go straight to jail. It becomes a criminal offense versus an infraction because you're recklessly driving, so you're endangering the public. It's kind of like taking a pistol out, showing it around, whipping it around,
Right.
So that is a speed trap. Now, I've actually had places that the speed limit was 55, and it actually went up to 65. Okay, so it didn't stay the same. It didn't go down. It actually went up. and I catch people at 80 or 85 miles an hour.
Right.
And they say, well, you're working on the line. It's a speed trap. I said, hello, the speed limit increased the last 2 miles along here. It was 55 and 60 and 65, and then it went to 70 or whatever it went to, and you're still going beyond that. It kept increasing.
Right.
And you kept increasing, but when it stopped going up, you didn't. You know?
Yeah.
And in Florida, they actually have a law that says anything's mounted, temporarily or permanently. At the time they did. I'd have to go back and say they may have changed the law. But it said anything temporarily or permanently mounted that receives, don't send, but can receive police-assigned frequencies that's assigned under the Federal Communications Commission. And what that was probably meant for was for scanners, so that bad guys couldn't have mounted scanners in the car with big antennas and keep up with the police if they were burglars or kidnappers or rapists or whatever they were.
Right.
But that's not what he said. So a radar has an assigned FCC frequency. So if anybody literally had a radar detector in their car, then guess what? They were committing a criminal act. It was a $1,000 fine or up to 6 months in the county jail, just like a scanner, because it didn't say scanner. It said any electronic device.
Right. Now,
okay.
Are you talking about a state law or a federal law?
No, this was a state law.
Right.
It's in Florida.
And what year
but
was
I'm
that
saying,
you're talking about?
Sir?
What year are you talking about when you mentioned that?
That would have been in 1990, maybe 91.
Yeah, it sounded like something from back in the day, because I remember when I was growing up as a kid, it was a controversial thing. I mean, I'm sure there's still laws in the books in certain states, but I remember back in the 90s, there was a bunch of people that had these radar scanners in their cars, and they'd cross over from one state to another, and they'd get in big trouble. And yeah.
Right. Well, see, here's the thing. To the best of my knowledge, and I used to hear this all over the country, and even when you look on websites, it would say it. It said illegal to carry a radar detector in your car, and it'd say all states it is legal except Virginia. And Virginia has big, gigantic signs posted: radar detectors are illegal in the state. Da 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 da. I've been across Virginia state line too many times to count.
Right.
Traveling, and it's the only place that's got that, to my knowledge. I've never seen it, and I've been to 43 of the 48 states.
Okay.
Maybe 44, but anyway, 43 I know for sure. Anyway, the point is, you look at it how you want to, but the law didn't specifically say radar detector, okay?
Right.
But you can have a case called burglary, and people's thinking burglary means a home. But a burglary can be a car, a burglary can be a business, a burglary can... So if the legislature doesn't give a statement of intent, like it is the intention of the legislature to da-da-da-da-da, so they're not just giving you the law, they're giving you the general consensus of the legislature.
Right.
What they're trying to accomplish. So a police officer, and more especially a judge and a DA, can look at something and say, well, technically this is a violation, but the legislature was not trying to do that, so we're not going to pursue it. So that's what it's meant to do, for those that get in the gray area.
Right.
Okay, so I have stopped people over and over and over and over with radar detectors, and I said, see your radar detector. I said, don't work too good, does it? I said, I just got to be honest with you. I said, when that thing goes beep, beep, that's your signal to pull over and wait. I said, because I've got a start-stop on this, and under Florida, I've got to look at you with my eyeballs. I've got to make a visual estimate of your speed, day or night. Then I got to hit it, and I've got to hear the pitch tone, The pitch tone has to be within 5 miles an hour of my estimate plus or minus, and the digital readout has to match the pitch tone, has to be within 5 miles an hour of what I'm saying. So it's a 3 check. It's a visual check by me. I'm trained to estimate speed. Then the radar is certified before I use it and after I use it with tuning forks. It's got an internal calibration unit, and then the pitch tone, because it'll go like if somebody's going slow, it'll go, oh, that might be like 10 or 12 miles an hour. Okay. Somebody's going 30 or 40, be you're doing 60 or 70, and when you hit a bang, it's like,
Right.
The fastest I ever clocked anybody, I think, was 114 on Interstate 10, right outside of Tallahassee. I caught him. I don't know if he had kept giving it the gas forever if I'd have caught him, and I don't know how fast his car would go.
Right.
But the point is, there's 3 ways to check it, and I'm saying that back at that particular time, I would just tell people, don't you think that a radar detector is kind of like you having burglar tools? And people would look at me like I was crazy. They said, what do you mean? This ain't a crime. Well, actually, in this state, it is a crime. And I said, I'm going to give you a Xerox copy of the law, just so you'll know. And I've highlighted certain sections and made some footnotes down at the bottom in my own handwriting, just to let you know. Just because nobody's pursuing this doesn't mean that there's not a law.
Right.
And just because these websites tell you that it's okay except for Virginia, they're wrong. I said, I've already talked to the state attorney and says, well, we haven't had nobody charge anybody with that, but you can certainly charge them with that's what the law says. We didn't even think about that. I said,
right.
Yeah, but I said, I study these law books all day and all night, and I study case law. And I just go to class after class, and I do so much reading 2 or 3 hours a day on my own of the Bible and the law books. I said, it's just what I do. So people say, well, how are you making that comparison? I said, well, if you're using a burglar tool, a pry bar, for example, to pry open the door to get in somebody's house or business, that's a tool used to commit a crime, right?
Right.
I said, well, you're using this to commit a crime too, or an infraction, whatever you want to call it. Okay, depends on exactly what you're doing in your car. Okay, I said people use those for a lot of things other than speeding. They're committing other crimes in their car, and they're using that to escape. Like they're hauling 2 kilos of hay, and they're not speeding, but no cops are around. They're cool. So
right.
You're used whatever you're doing to break a law.
Right.
I never thought of that. I said, well, I'm telling you, think of it. Anyway, I said, I could escape this right now, and I can actually put you in jail. Okay, it's a criminal offense.
Right.
I said, but I'm going to let you take it, put it up, and put it in your trunk, and after you get out of my jurisdiction, you've been warned. I gave you the paper. You can read it. And if you make a decision after you leave my jurisdiction to hook it back up, that's between the cop and the next jurisdiction.
Right.
I said, because I'm a reasonable man. And
right.
I said, I mainly give warnings on tickets.
Right.
I said, somebody's got to be doing every bit of 15 and usually 20 before I'll start thinking about writing a ticket. And I said, my theory is when I go up, I'm not going to write you a ticket unless you were blazing through a residential area and you could have killed a kid. Then it's a different story.
Sure.
But most of the time, my mindset is I had a guy named Dan. He was one of my training officers in Dallas. He said, try and treat people like your own family if they'll let you. If they won't, then you got to do what you got to do. And so I said, he said, don't plan on writing nobody a ticket. planning on not writing him a ticket. And I got that from him. So when I go up to people, I say, my idea is I don't want to write you a ticket. And I won't write you a ticket unless you leave me no choice. If you force me, I mean, I didn't actually say that a lot of times, but that's what I was thinking in my mind, and I would try and say, look, you know, you don't have to talk to me, okay? You don't have to talk to me.
Sure.
I said, this is who I am, and this is why I'm stopping you, and this is what I'm requesting from you. And they usually said, okay, and this, you know, they gave me what I should do, and then I say, well, let me write you a warning, and let's talk about it. I said, because here's the deal. If you're really a violator, tomorrow, next week, 6 months, a year, I'll catch you again, right? I said, or another cop around here will catch you. But I said, if I can talk to you, maybe I, as a peace officer, am going to leave a good taste in your mouth, and you're going to say, yeah, there's really some good cops still out here. And, it, you know, I said, maybe you don't have money to go pay $175 to $300 ticket. You know?
Right.
So I said, let's just talk about it. I said the original reason people used to get tickets, and there wasn't that many of them, but the reason they used to get them was the theory was if a man had to get off his wallet and pay out some.
And it's not just the penalty. There's also excessive fees associated with these tickets to the point where even if you prevail and you end up not being found guilty, you still have to pay a bunch of fees. So that also is something I feel is unfair.
Right. So, you know, but I'm saying back in the 70s, the way we were taught and trained and the way I believed was if a man had to get off his wallet, and back then a lot of things were $40 to $70.
Sure.
But, you know, $200 a week was a good paycheck too. So,
yeah.
Anyway, the point is, we were taught that if somebody was really a violator and you made a decision on your discretion, your sole discretion, nobody else, that this man or woman was being honest, and you could work with them, then don't write them a ticket. But if the man or woman is a clown, if they're a jerk, if they tell you, look, I don't want to hear none of your speech, I got more money than time. Okay, I'll be right with you. Hurry up and write it up, give it to them, and go on your way.
Right.
So basically, that's what that's the way I lived. You know,
okay.
That's the way I worked. And but you know, in other words, if they had to pay a fine, they was going to notice that. It was going to hurt them.
Right.
And that was going to pierce their mind, and they was going to think, man, I better slow down around here. But if you could accomplish it through talking to somebody, do it. I mean, I had judges telling me that. I had other cops saying that. Not all, but a lot. They were, you know, you had a lot of that 1 out of 12 mentality, you know.
Okay.
The cops were good and straight guys and straight shooters. And, you know, it was a different world, and it was really civilian police, not military police,
right.
That, you know, guys as civilian police. You know, they act like military police on military reservations.
Right.
In fact, I hired a guy one time to be a cop for me. He was a good guy, and he said, you know, when I was at MP and worked on a military reservation, he said, the way most police act today is the way we're trained to treat soldiers, GIs, government issue, on military basis. We're civilian cops. You can't do that. We're under UMCJ. But that's the way police are acted.
Right.
And he said, sometimes I have to check myself. I start to go into soldier mode out here, like when I was military police. Then I catch myself and say, wait a minute, civilians out here, you can't bark orders at them like you can in the military.
Right. Brazil is like that.
Huh?
Brazil is just like that. Brazil actually has official military police units patrolling the streets of Brazilian cities, and in Brazil, that's legal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I will tell you this. I seen things changing. I did what I could to try and get bad cops out. I didn't have the final say a lot of times on a lot of people. But I told the cops I worked with, I said, listen, if you steal somebody's money, like they go to jail and you get their wallet in their car before it's towed, or they got some gold or jewelry and you take it out of the car and put it in your pocket, guess what? I will go to the DA. I will get them to direct file a criminal charge against you on a sworn affidavit of a peace officer that I've seen you do it. If you lie under oath, if you do any of these things, you can call me a rat, you can call me a fat rat, you can call me anything you want to, but I'm a straight guy. If you make a mistake, if you make an actual mistake, I'm with you. Just confess, okay? If you lose your job, then you have to just lose your job. Some mistakes, you just can't make that mistake and keep your job. Depends on what it is. But I said I'll stand with you. But if you do somebody dirty or wrong, you're toast. I said, I'll stand up on top of the police department, holler and yell how you're a bad cop. You know.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that particular situation because of what recently has happened in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. There is so much going on there, you can't possibly know.
Right.
I only have a couple of people I know that I know in that department. And I don't talk to them a lot. I think they're pretty good Joes, so to speak. You know, they're a little older, more laid back. They're more of a cop like I am. They're collecting a check and they're waiting to collect their pension. You know, if somebody has to go to jail or has to get a ticket, they do it. But they'll go all the way around the world, not to arrest people if possible. And
that's the way it should be.
Yeah, but I've come to the conclusion that they said, you know, small towns have it and big towns have it, and it's proportional. But some departments just have an evil streak running right through the middle of it.
Right.
And it's a culture. You know, LAPD, back in the 80s and 90s, they had chiefs of police at the top that said one thing in public and said another thing in private.
Okay.
And the culture was, if you were Hispanic or Negro, you wasn't the deal. You know, you was gonna get the hookup if it come down to it. You know, you wasn't gonna get the same treatment as the white boys. And
you were treated like a second class police.
And the black officers was buying into it because the black officers considered themselves on the exact same level as the white officers, which they were, but in a roundabout way, they were turning black officers against their own people.
Right. Uncle Tom.
And they were turning Hispanic and Asian officers against their people. And in fact, they had them assigned to communities that, quote, represented them so they could see officers that looked like them. But I'd hear black people say, man, I'd rather deal with the Oreo cracker or redneck than I had a brother officer. I say, why? Because they try and hem you up and rope you off. Said a redneck, at least you know straight up where he's coming from. You know what he thinks. And you know how to put on the old song and dance and make him happy, and he'll be happy and go away. You can't do that with a brother. You know, you can't do no jive. You can't do no talk. If you say brother, they jump on you. Said they're harder on us than any white cop ever was. Said the only thing you got to watch out about white cops is shooting you in the back. Said, you know, outside of that, they're pretty good. You know, so that used to be a running joke, which ain't a joke. Very damn serious. But I've seen too many police misuse their office or their department, abuse too many people, and that's why I started trying to work with this other guy. But he lied to me, and it turned out that he had been to prison too many times to count, and he was a hardcore con man. And, you know, he told me some things up front, and I understood that. And I said, I can live with that. But it was the other 90% he didn't say, and things he kept doing, and he was using my good name to further himself. So we had a parting of the ways, and then he tried to demonize me. So I basically at that point in time said, well, I'm just going to do my own videos, and all I'm going to do is talk about cops and courts and try and explain things to people that way. Okay. And I actually somehow, somewhere or another, about a year ago, began talking to a couple of the auditors. Okay. And saying, you know, I believe in what you're doing. I actually helped buy some of them some gas or meals or different things a few times here and there over a month or two. Well, they saw some of my videos and they started encouraging me, hey, you need to come out and audit with us because you know how to talk cop talk. You know how to talk to judges. Sure. You know the right questions to ask. You know if they're being legit or lying, and we generally know, but you're more expert at it and you know how to handle it. Right. So when the almost park thing come up, then a couple of people called me and said, you know, we're going to do the thing at Almost Park and we really want you to come. And a few people donated, but there was really a couple people I didn't know from Adams House Cat that were very generous people, and they gave a pretty good bit of money, you know, to help me. It didn't pay for everything, but it paid a lot. So I went to Almost Park, you know. And, you know, I put my time into it, but, you know, and it's a lot of miles to put on my truck, but I did it. Yeah. And I paid some cash into it myself. Well, people liked what I did. Right. Then I started getting text messages and phone calls and emails and people seeing me here and there, and I didn't know that many freaking people watched my YouTube or seen me with other auditors. Now, and so I kind of...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me. So basically, when Leon Valley come along, they said, some people called me and said, hey, we really need you here again. Right. Okay, I went. Then the next time something come up at Leon Valley, they said, we need you to come again. I went again. Okay. So, you know, I've been to Almost Park once, Leon Valley twice. You know, I Ubered in and I Ubered out. Okay. Because I was afraid they was going to try and, you know, steal my automobile. Oh, of course. But, you know, they might try and plant something in it. Right. You know, I said, these are rogue officers. Right. You know, these people are acting as, quote, law enforcement robots. You know, the law says you cannot do this. You have done this. You are going to jail. They don't give you no opportunity to, quote, dispel the alarm. Right. They don't give you no opportunity for explanation, which you don't have to do. You have a right to remain silent. The alarm themselves. So, you know, I know a lot of good officers. I do. And they said, you know, everybody expects us to, quote, rat out or push out bad cops. But they said everybody's got a different barometer on what is a bad cop. Right. You know, is a bad cop a lenient cop, but he's cocky or rude. Okay? Well, being cocky and being rude isn't professional, but it's not necessarily an ethics violation or a policy violation. It certainly does break the law. So I knew a cop one time. He came out of the Marine Corps. He was one of the cockiest cops I ever seen in my life.
Okay.
He looked like a walking, talking genital. I'd never say nothing like that. Now, he didn't use profanity, but he made clear what his thoughts were on things. But he gave a lot of people a lot of breaks that other cops wouldn't have done.
Okay.
And some people come up and said, he's a bad cop, you need to get rid of him. Why? Well, he's rude. Well, I can't fire him because he's rude. I said, now if you want to tell me exactly what he said, there may be a policy violation here, and I can deal with that.
Right.
If he said something that was insensitive to you based on your race, religion, something else, I said, depending on what he said, and depending on, the totality of the situation, then at minimum, I'm going to bring him in, I'm going to talk to him and get his side of the story. I got yours, I'm going to get his.
Right.
And I don't automatically believe you, and I don't automatically believe him.
Sure.
90% of the time when I get a citizen complaint on an officer, I bring in the officer. I've taken down all the notes on the complainant. I've taken down all the information on the accused officer. And I said, you know what? I said, it usually averages out about 50-50 because the officer don't tell everything that happened. But then the complainant don't tell everything that happened. But between both of them, I usually get a pretty good color picture of what happened.
Sure.
And then I can go back to that person. I've actually brought the complainant officer back in and had him sitting across from the desk from me, sitting side by side. And I say, well, officer, you said da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But you didn't bring up this, and this.
Right.
And Mr. and Miss Complainant, you said these things, but you didn't bring up this, and this.
Right.
So I said, after reviewing everything both of you said, half of it y'all both absolutely agree on. There's no difference at all. The other 50% seems like to me, since I don't have a dog in the fight, it seems like it's a personality conflict.
Right.
The officer don't like you because of your attitude, and you don't like the officer because of their attitude. So y'all both got personally offended and said some things that weren't too kind to each other, but nobody actually violated anybody.
Right.
You got some hurt feelings.
Yeah.
You felt disrespected as a citizen, and looks like you have a little ego damage here. Both of y'all.
Right.
So the cops got ego damage and the citizen both alike. So I'd address it that way. That goes back to my Sheriff Andy Taylor mentality about trying to get both sides of the story, trying to do what's fair. Sometimes you got to lock people up. Sometimes you got to write a ticket. Sometimes people have to go to prison. Sometimes you have to fight with a suspect and damn near kill them.
Right.
I've been there. I had to fight with a man tooth and toenail, and I was to the point of he was going to overtake me. He had battered me repeatedly. We're in a fight. He had a knife. He hadn't pulled it,
right,
but he had it on his side. I could have shot him immediately. He was within 21 foot, and that's the Florida rule, 21 foot at that particular time.
Okay.
I could have shot him dead.
Right.
No questions asked. But in my mind, I was never going to be able to sleep at night for the rest of my life just because there was a law that protected me, and I had immunity on top of that. I wasn't going to do that. I'm a man, and I got to be right with people, and I got to be right with my family, and I got to be right with God. So I can't do that.
Yeah.
But he was getting to the point he was about to take me out either by knife or in the fight, this has been going on a while.
Yeah.
Now, I'm fat, but I can get around, okay?
Sure.
Especially back then. And I could hold my own and then some. That don't mean nobody couldn't whoop me, but because I always knew there was somebody out there could.
Right.
I wasn't in a false belief.
Yeah.
But another officer that retired out of the Navy that had muscles like Mr. Universe,
yeah,
he grabbed a hold of the guy and he had him, and the guy wouldn't let go of me, and he was starting to break his neck. I heard it begin to snap.
Oh, wow.
And he says, let go of the chief. He says, ain't gonna do it. Ain't gonna do it. You sold out to the cracker. You know, this is what he said to the officer.
Okay.
And so the guy gives me a little bit of ring, but not much. And he said, Chief, just tell me. I break that windpipe. It's almost there now. And he would have been justified. I mean, you know, it was like a struggle for our life. He would have been justified. But I said, no, Big Charles, don't do it. Don't do it.
Right.
And I just had this idea in my mind all of a sudden that I had my collapsible baton, and it was closed, but I said, I think I can get it here and pop him dead in the chest or close to the Adam's apple, and when he needs jerks to grab, then I get out. And that's what I did. So Big Charlie kept him down, and then I got one cuff on him, and we was trying to get the other one back around, and he said, look, Bozo, you either put the other arm back or I'm going to finish the windpipe. And I heard something else crack, and the guy started gurgling. He said, I ain't joking. Put that arm back or you're dead.
Right.
I said, let up. Let up, Big Charles, let up. You know, I didn't want to kill the man. So he finally put the other arm behind him. He was one of the strongest human beings I've ever seen in my life. And he was taking some of that dope. I shouldn't say that, but I have every reason to believe he had superhuman strength. Now, he was a big guy and a strong guy anyway, but he was over his limit. And he was hyped up. And he heard something in the street, and he thought I had something to do with it. And the other officer had actually become engaged to a girl he used to go out with. She dumped him. So he hated that officer. Plus, he thought that I did something wrong. So he had a personal vendetta against us.
Right.
And he jumped me without no warning, no nothing. I'd actually passed by him, and he jumped on me. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I've been in those struggles. I was in another struggle on the side of the road, stopping a man for speeding, and that's all it was. And it turned out he had a felony warrant.
Okay.
I'm still being cool. I'm telling him, listen, you know, we got a felony warrant. I said they're printing it out at the sheriff's office. I said, I'll serve it to you as soon as we get to the jail. I give you the warrant number, the information now. And I said, in fact, I said, your car is on private property. I know the man that owns this place. And I'll ask him, you know, if you can leave it here for at least a day and see if you can get a bond.
Sure.
So I'm being decent. And the guy turns around, hits me so hard in the face he knocks me down, and then jumps on me. So we're tussling around the ground. I ain't going back to prison. I ain't this, that. So we're fighting. This, you know, it probably wasn't but 5 or 6 minutes, but it seemed like an hour.
Yeah.
Well, about that time, I mean, he had me in a bad position. It's one of these things to where I'm going to have to shoot him or die.
Yeah.
And it's within seconds of making that decision. And it's getting closer towards shooting him.
I can only imagine.
A man that I had sent to prison, he sent himself, but I actually wrote the reports.
Yeah.
And it actually had a big, gigantic fist fight with me, and it busted my chest plate previously in the past.
Wow.
And I had to handcuff this guy and drag him through a swamp for at least a mile. And, you know, I had the freaking SWAT team out there at the end of the road thinking I was dead because my radio wouldn't get out. And they see me coming out with this guy, and they said, "We thought you was dead." And I said, "No, I just had to drag him through the swamp." And they was, I mean, I was up to my between my ankles and knees, depending on where we were stepping out there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But I took him to the hospital, and I got him cleared before he went to the jail. Then I went back to the hospital, and they told me I was going to have to be off for so many days because I had a cracked chest plate. I said, "I'll be okay." I said, "It's a lot of pain, but I said after tonight I'm off the next 2 days anyway."
Yeah.
So I said, I'll be good. That same guy, because I never done him wrong, and I always treated him, and he always said this, "Mr. Jones, you always respect a man. You always do."
Yeah.
And said, "That's why a brother will protect you, because you treat a man like a man with respect."
Right. Yeah.
He come running up, and I barely seen him out of the corner of my eye, and of course my mind's flashing. Is he hyped up and he's fixing to jump on me and try to finish me with this guy? What? He took his hand and he hit that guy, slapping his face. And I don't mean he knocked him off. I mean he knocked him out. The man was unconscious.
Wow.
He hit him so hard, knocked him off, and he raised the hand to pick me up. He said, "Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones, what you going to do if I was in prison?" He said, "I just got out today. I come straight out here after I got out, and I was going to check in with what you know. I was changing my ways and changing my life. And, you know, I've always respected you. Sometimes you make me mad, but I always respected you. Sure. And you're the king of town here. But, you know, I actually had to call an ambulance, and they had to bring him around with the sniffing things, and, you know, he had to be cleared. So then, you know, of course, I called the record."
Okay.
So he went. They charged him with ag battery, attempted capital murder on a peace officer, because, you know, he repeatedly told me several times, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." So his intent, based on his own statement, was to kill me, and he was trying to do it.
Yeah.
So he was way on out there. But the point is, that guy that I had to lock him up 3 times, he went to prison. If I had have ever done him wrong, that guy down there might have killed me, or I might have killed him, or we might have killed each other.
Right.
But
Definitely doesn't sound like that.
But because I treated him with respect, you know, I mean, these stories go on forever and ever and ever. And there are a few cops around that actually started before there was even a police academy in Texas.
Okay.
There ain't many that I know of, but they're grandfathered in. So they never have to go to academy.
Right.
So some of them have been around since 65, 66, 67, you know.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're all probably like between 68 and 72, 73 years old, and they're still out there. I know one that's in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
Right this minute. He was a training officer for me in 1978. Yeah. He's still alive. And he's still out there.
You think he does a good job, or what's he all about?
Oh, yeah. In fact, he actually had a couple of heart attacks, believe it or not. But see, he kept going to school, and he actually got a doctoral degree. And in Dallas, you know, each higher level you get more pay.
I did not know that.
And then the more years of training you have, then with the department, you get a bump. So you can get a bump in time and a bump in education. So the last I know, he was just under $200,000 a year.
Oh my goodness!
And then of course he has a pension that'd kill a dog. I'm thinking. Well, it's been a few years since I talked to him. I actually say he's still alive, but it's been a little bit, but he probably is. But anyway, I know at that time, if he retired, I'm almost positive he was going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of $90,000 a year or more in retirement the day he brought dead.
You mean $5,000 a month or a year?
A year. In other words, he would get a little. I think he was going to get a little less than half. But, depends on what year you come in as to what benefits you got and what you were locked into. Or if they made a policy that allowed you to change from one thing to another.
But $5,000 a year doesn't sound like much money, though.
No, $90,000.
Oh,
90.
Yeah, now that makes more sense.
Yeah. So I'm saying he was like, I think, 192 or 196,000, something like that a year he gets now. Yeah. So he'd go into, I think, a little more than half. I don't know all the dynamics. I used to know everything, but over the years I forgot, and then of course it's changed. So what I knew back then versus now wouldn't be the same.
Right. Yeah. I know that a lot of cities, I don't know how Dallas is, but I know that a lot of cities are feeling a lot of financial pain because they have, people who retire from, as a firefighter or police officer, and then they get these large pensions for decades, and then, you have thousands of people doing that, and that's a lot of money going out,
Yeah. Amen. I know that was a lieutenant at a sheriff's office in Florida in 2004. He was fixing to retire, but he had transferred his money out of the retirement system into the stock market because they made a law where you could do that. Well, if he had stayed in the retirement system, he'd be able to take out what he could get per year. But people said, well, what if I retired, I'm out here 6 months and drop dead, what about my wife?
Yeah.
Or what about my kids if we still got kids or grandkids maybe we're raising, It ain't right for me to put 20 or 30 years in, and I was told when I was hired I earned this, and now you just say, well, okay. So they actually made a law that if you become vested, then you could roll it over the stock market. So you can get it now or you can get it later, so long as you're 55 or older, or you become disabled, or you're separated for so many months. They had all these rules. But anyway, he had $900,000 in retirement.
Yeah.
So he rolled that over. Well, he wound up with like $1.1 or $1.2 million.
Okay.
In other words, the stock market was working right for him the way he had it diversified.
Yeah.
So he had a deal to where he was going to have a regular retirement from old age pension or whatever you want to call it, Social Security. And so he set it at $20,000 or $25,000 a year to pay him out.
Okay.
So with what he was going to get on Social Security retirement, and then that amount of money was going to leave him in the correct tax bracket for him to live exactly like he lived the day he left.
Yeah.
And that he'd be able to slowly increase it, $1,000 or $1,200 or $2,000 every year. And that probably by the time he died, if he lived his life expectancy, he'd probably still have at least $400,000 left to leave to his wife if he was alive, or to his kids and grandkids.
Right.
Now, a man, I've seen this in the internet, and I believe it's true. Of course, you can't believe everything there.
Right.
But this man had accumulated something like between $800,000 and $900,000 a year to be paid in a pension in California.
Yeah.
A year. Okay, so he's close to $1 million a year because he started back in the early 70s sometime, and they said if you did it, well, see, during the 70s, you might get minimum wage as a cop, believe it or not, at a lot of departments.
Oh, wow.
But the reason you went there is because they gave you free insurance for you and your family.
Okay.
And they had a pension plan. And if you stayed there 10 years or 20 years or stayed in the system, even if you went from one department to another, so long as that department participated in the state retirement, then you still got your money.
Right.
And it's a percentage of your paycheck.
Right.
And sometimes the city pays 100%. And they all used to do that, to my knowledge, but in the very late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of people started wanting you to pay 5 or 8 or 10% into your own retirement, which is fine. But these people that were grandfathered in back in the 60s and 70s said, you know, you get this, you get that. And so now they're retiring in 2012, 2015, 2019, and they're getting several $100,000 a year.
Wow.
In retirement.
That's amazing.
You know, or supposedly they can cash it out for $6 or $7 million at one swoop, you know, or something. So California is bankrupt, no matter how you say it. They're cooking the books and they're juggling things over there. And of course, there's been investigative reports on the news that have gone into this. So I'm relying on the investigative reports of journalists that have dug into the records. And a lot of officials, even in California, have said this on TV. So I've got absolute reason to believe it's true. And the reason that they're saying this is a person or a business or a government can be bankrupt, but they keep rolling enough money over just in time to meet their obligation not to have to file it.
Okay.
So what they do is, a lot of times, then they're telling the police, you got to go make up the difference. They're telling police, you got to go make up the difference in the budget.
Well, what do you mean by killing police or telling police? What does that mean?
Well, that's the way I tell them. You got to make more arrests, write more tickets. You got to bring in more revenue.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Now I make sense.
So now I got in a gigantic, very heated verbal dispute with the city manager at one city I worked at when I was chief of police, because actually I was assistant chief at the time, and he tried to get the chief of police to fire me, but he wouldn't. But he said, your activity's real low. You're the worst one for activity outside the chief of police, but he's got to be up here, and he spends 70% of his time on administrative duties, 30% on investigations, patrol, and other activities. You're set at like 30% of your time for administrative duties and 70% for investigations and patrol, supervision, all this stuff. Okay. He said, but the point is, based on the average number of other officers are writing tickets and making arrests, per that 30% of whatever I had per capita, I wasn't writing as many tickets as they was. I wasn't making as many arrests. And I said, look. And he said, according to the county, some of these guys are below average. I said, well, we can't make people go out and break the law.
Right.
Number two, it's illegal. It's a criminal act to make the police department fund itself. That's a crime.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've heard that before. Is that a federal law or?
Well, it could be. that's the best thing it could be. But I knew in Florida that in the 70s this had happened sometimes, and I don't know, I can't remember what the law said, but I knew that a police department could not be made to fund itself. It was considered a necessity, a city service, the same as the garbage collection or a fireman or paramedics.
Right.
It was a public service. You were a public servant of the public trust. You had to fund the police out of the tax dollars.
Right, because if a police department has a motivation to officially try to fund itself, it becomes a for-profit business.
Yeah, I'm almost positive, but I'm going to leave a little room for correction here. But either a state Supreme Court or various state Supreme Courts, and I want to thank the Supreme Court of the United States did, sometime in there, they used to, back in the 60s, and part of the 70s, but the 60s in Texas, as well as other states, to my understanding, then the constable, the sheriff, and the JP was fee funded. Okay? So if you're the cop over here in this town, or you're a deputy sheriff, you get paid based on the number of arrests you make. Like, if you arrested somebody by today's standards, you might get $30.
Okay.
You write somebody a speeding ticket, you might get $8 or $10 or $15. If you served a civil process, you might get $20 to $40. So if you went out and you stayed pretty active and pretty busy, and didn't slouch and didn't get tied up in a bunch of investigations, which you could, then you could make $100 to $200 in a day, depending. So you might as well just figure 150 would have been the average by today's standards per capita, back to the dollar value of maybe 1972 or 73.
Okay.
So basically, you're sitting and looking at this cop by today's standards making maybe $500 to $800 a week. $1,000 at most. So, if he took vacation and if he this, that, and other, $48,000 is the max he could make, and probably, 35,000 or so if he, didn't do a whole lot, is what he might make.
Sure.
So the courts, I know at some time, said you can't make the police fund themselves. It's unconstitutional because they have a driving force, an incentive to arrest people. They have an incentive to write tickets to people.
Right.
Now they still do the same thing, but they figured a loophole. It's almost like a wraparound mortgage. Okay, somebody else has the mortgage, so they're paying Chase, J.P. Morgan, they're paying Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Wachovia, whoever. They're paying somebody something for a home. Then they actually turn around and they sell that home to somebody else. You bought it, but you got a note. So you're making them pay to you, and then you're paying to the other. Okay?
Yeah.
So here's what some city managers say, especially in small towns. They'll say, well, your police budget is now $800,000 or $1.8 million, and based on things, it looks like we got about $600,000 or $700,000 to fund y'all. So probably by May or June, we're probably going to have to cut 10 or 15 officers off the force. We're going to have to give them furloughs and blah blah blah. And so that's a thin veil threat. However, if fines and forfeitures come in and there's enough money to pay everybody and even overtime, then we'll keep everybody on and maybe give you some more help and get you some pay raises. So guess what? Even though you're not getting off the fee, the fines and forfeiture go to the city, and the city's turning around and giving it to you in a paycheck or a bonus.
Right. Yeah.
So it's still the same thing, but theoretically it's like a trust.
Yeah.
There's somebody between you and your money. And so the person between you and your money is supposed to be the good person, the trustee. And some city clerk rights. So I told the city manager, I said, look, I ain't going to say what I said, but I said words to the effect of, I'm not a freaking revenue machine. And my officers are not a revenue machine. And if you try and push, pull, scare, threaten, intimidate, harass me or any of my officers to make one arrest that isn't justified, one ticket that isn't justified based on our discretion, based on our training experience, what is proper, what we can swear to in a court of law, I said, your ass will be the next one going to jail.
Right.
And you can explain to the judge how you got arrested. You always tell us about, well, you just tell the people to see the judge. Well, you'll be seeing the judge. So he told the chief of police he wanted him to fire me for insubordination. And the chief said, well, he said, you could, you're city manager, so you actually have the actual authority to fire him. However, if you fire him for insubordination, then he's got a many $100,000 lawsuit against the city for wrongful termination because he has excellent reports, and then you're going to have to explain why he was cautioning you to stop committing a criminal act.
Yeah.
Threatening police to arrest people and write tickets for money for you and the other city officials.
Right.
And because he didn't do that, you said insubordination. And I'm going to back him up. Said, so in the end, you will go to jail because the state attorney will file direct on you. He'll give a sworn affidavit because even though he won't be a peace officer now if you fire him, he was a peace officer at the time. So he'll be able to give a sworn statement as a peace officer at the time he committed the crime.
Yeah.
And so you'll go to jail, and the city will have to pay him because it ruins his reputation.
Yeah.
And then secondary to that, he's probably going to have to be reinstated with back pay plus a penalty, and to be reinstated as though he never left here.
Right.
He'll be given credit for all his time.
Yeah.
So the city manager backed off. So I've had it out with mayors, council people, the sheriff, constables over the year about doing the right thing. You know, now, I'm not saying even most of them. I'm just saying that there were some here and some there. In 40 years, you run into some. Sure. So I said, look, let's just follow what Jesus said. Do that which is right.
Okay.
And I've never been a sworn officer in my life.
You never did
what? You know, they always say the police are sworn officers of the law.
Sure.
I can, with all confidence, say I've never been a sworn law enforcement officer in my life.
Okay.
Never. Because it gives you on the form, you can sign it that says sworn or affirm. I always scratch out swear and I say affirm.
Okay.
A lot of people do it because of their religious objection. When I go to court, I'm never sworn in. I tell them I will adhere or I will affirm to tell the truth.
Okay.
But based on my religious beliefs, I can't swear by heaven or earth. It's forbidden by God. I can't swear.
Okay.
So the law provides for that I can affirm or adhere, A-D-V-E-R, or A-V-E-R. I can adhere. It's a Christian custom. Means my yes is yes, my no is no. I'm entitled to my ancient Christian customs.
Okay.
Because it's not repugnant to the Constitution, it's not repugnant to law.
Yeah, well, if you got your beliefs, you got your beliefs.
Yep. But my wife has been holding dinner for over an hour.
Oh, okay.
And she really wants me to come eat. So maybe we'll talk another time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sounds good.
And maybe you'll send me a link whenever, however you post this, that I might look at it.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect timing, too, that you just asked that and that you called today, because I actually, within the next 12 to 24 hours, I'm going to be posting another one of my videos, so hopefully you can check it out.
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely, and I'll tell other people. Just send me the link, and I'll check it out, and I thank you, and God bless you, and I hope I didn't bore nobody.
Oh, no, it was great listening to you, and I'm really honored to hear your stories, because, you know, I'm not a police officer. I've never been one. I've never aspired to be one, so especially hearing stories from a chief of police who has been a chief for many years, you know, this is, like, for me, a very, very important phone call just because of that.
Well, I have always been honored to work as a peace officer, an officer of the public trust. I've always taken my job serious. I've always loved serving the people. I knew the people were my boss. I mean, there's a chain of command within the government, but I knew that the people paid all the bills.
Right.
And when people come to me, I answered them, and I didn't treat them like they were bad people. I treated, you know, it didn't matter if it was a crackhead, okay, if it was a prostitute, if it was a burglar, it was the mayor of the city. I gave everybody their respect and their dignity. Now, some people had to go to jail. Some people had to get notices to appear. But I didn't talk nobody down. I didn't talk to nobody like they was a dog. I gave everybody their respect and decency. And a lot of people come clean off of drugs or criminal life, and they always come back and talk to me and said, you know, you gave me some dignity. You gave me some respect.
Right.
And I said, well, I want to be the first one to help anybody to turn around and live a better life. You don't have to, you don't have to be a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or whatever your religion is, or have no religion. But I said, there are people that have no religion. They'll tell you straight to your face, I'm an atheist. I don't know how I got here. I don't know where I'm going. And they'll say that they're an atheist.
Right.
But they'll say, but I believe in live and let live. I'm going to respect you as a man. You respect me as a man. And if you need some help over in your yard, I'll come help you. If I need some help in my yard, you come help me. That's the way I live. Right. You know? So that's just me. But I thank you, and I pray God bless you and your audience in a great and mighty way.
Oh, I appreciate
and with that, I have to, yes, sir.
And growing, so.
Yes, sir. So I have to sign off for now.
Okay, and hopefully you could, I don't know if you're subscribed to my channel yet, but hopefully if you're not, you can subscribe, and I will be in touch, and I really appreciate the call today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you too. Enjoy your dinner. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. Well.